of the California Arts Council and Beverly Hills Arts Commission is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories can be read in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to California Apparel News. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to Joan Quinn, Etc. We have a great show for you today. Our guests, actor Alexis Arquette and artist Billy Al Bengston. Alexis Arquette was born in Los Angeles in 1969. He's from a family of actors. His well-known grandfather, Cliff Arquette, played a great character named Charlie Weaver. And I never knew if Charlie Weaver was the person or Cliff Arquette was the person. So we'll find out today from Alexis. His sisters, Rosanna and Patricia, are both working in the business, and he has a little brother, David, who's also working.
That's
Lex,
right.
Lex. I'm going to call you Lex since
Please,
I've known
Joan.
you for so long.
Make yourself at home.
When did you decide to be an actor?
I went to art school. I had no plans to be an actor. Everyone in my family is an actor, so it was kind of like not the thing to do. You know?
Even your mother.
That's
I mean,
right.
everyone was, and you traveled with them as a child.
That's right. I traveled with them, like the gypsy actors, and I never really liked the lifestyle. I never really liked, living out of a car and
Kind of more hippie type?
Yeah, in fact, my first 5 years was in a commune. And
tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen? A commune from this kind of real showbiz family.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, it was the 60s, so it was kind of like back to nature kind of thing. And everyone felt this sort of socialist push, They all wanted to be really politically correct. But the problem was it was a good idea, but it fell apart in the end because there was only like 10 people out of hundreds working. So everyone kind of lived in this sort of poverty lifestyle, and nobody was like into it. After a while, all the magic sort of went away.
Real fast.
The flowers wilted real fast,
So then what happened? You came back to LA?
Well, actually, my father decided to give up acting for a little while and become a jazz musician in Chicago. So we did that for a little while, which was fun to grow up in Evanston. I always thought we lived by the ocean, and I only realized years later that it was a great lake.
It was a lake.
Yeah.
I had to go and say, oh, look at the water. It's the ocean.
Because it had waves. And then we finally came back to LA where my family, we never really had money, but we always hung out with sort of wealthy families who liked my family because they were creative and artistic, and they took us into their arms.
And the babies too? All these kids?
All the kids, everyone. And Rosanna had already come out on her own.
So she was away.
She'd already hitchhiked her way out to LA.
I think you people are all like the most mature kids that ever existed, and maybe because you've been dragged all over.
Yeah, and we, it's like, we fought a lot with our parents, I'm not going to lie. As teenagers, we really had a hard time growing up with.
And they probably accepted it, since they were flower children.
Yeah,
part of it all,
exactly.
That's what they expected you to do.
It's true, they couldn't say anything about us smoking or doing drugs or having sex, because that was something that their generation sort of paved the way for us to do. But we were living in a different time. We were growing up in an age of AIDS and crack and stuff, so it wasn't like the same, it wasn't as romantic as sex and drugs in the 60s.
So you didn't throw it up to their face, actually?
Yeah, sure we did. A couple times when I didn't, have an argument, I would just say, well, it's because of you flower children that we're this way.
Oh, that was...
So, well, that's kind of a cruel thing. But in the end, it worked out. In fact, we got to travel around as teenagers on our own. And, it was kind of like a slap in the face from the parents. Like, see, we told you so. The world is not that easy.
I know. You went away to Asia.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 15.
I know. And you lived in Greece?
Yeah, well, we lived in Portugal and Italy and Greece and England and Indonesia. I would travel with friends that were sort of leftovers from this hippie commune families.
Oh,
so it was kind of good. We had these connections there. I'd always have a place to sleep.
So it was okay. I mean, it wasn't like just going out and finding anybody in a city.
Well,
it were people who were connected to you in a way.
In a way, it wasn't like staying in beautiful villas either.
No.
I mean, it was like I remember I was going to too many nightclubs, far too many nightclubs, and doing a lot of drugs and stuff. And I was real young, I'm 14.
I
so
know.
they sent me to this thing that they called it a work camp. Okay.
Oh, right.
So figure out what that means. You know, we go, they pay, we work.
Right.
It was really great.
Where was that?
It was in Portugal, and then I ended up just nonsense. My parents were the only ones that were actually paying, so I was sort of feeding everyone. So at 14, I became like the controller of the money, and I started getting the checks and making sure who ate what, and it kind of gave me a little bit of power. And I decided, you know, this is nonsense. I'm going to take off and check out Europe. So I did that, and I ended up started working in some nightclubs in London, and hung out with some DJs and stuff.
Doing what, singing, acting, doing what?
Go-go dancing.
Oh, you didn't.
Yes,
Did you?
Performance art.
Oh, I think, but that really actually led into your acting career.
Exactly, because I was never a person to like want to be in front on a stage or anything. And you know, I was a painter. I wanted to paint. I went to Otis Parsons. I really was like serious about it. And then I got a job in one film, Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Let's talk about that, because it's a part where you have to dress up.
Yeah.
Cross-dressing. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it was sort of weird for me. It was, the preparation was a little strange. I had to have my mother drop me off to the audition.
Because you couldn't drive?
I couldn't drag. I couldn't drive. Couldn't drag. And so she dropped me off in the full regalia, you know, and it was kind of weird driving my mother in drag, you know. But what
kind of role was it? Just tell us a little bit about the role.
Well, beyond being a drag queen, this character, Georgette, was a drug addict. So I thought was really more important than the feminine side, was the drugs. So when I did land the role, I spent a lot of time hanging out in 42nd Street and checked.
I was wondering how you prepared yourself, but you actually went to 42nd Street?
Oh, yeah.
You actually hung out with those kind of people?
Sure.
Did you designed your own costume?
No.
You didn't?
No.
You were
in the film?
No, when you went to audition.
Oh, by all means I did. Yes, of course I did.
You knew how to sew and pull it together?
Yeah, I pulled it together. I went shopping and nothing fit, right? I didn't like it, so I decided I just got a couple yards of lame and made myself a pair of high-waisted pedal pushers and did it right.
The lame.
The lame.
Do we have a clip from that?
I think we do have a clip. This is the first time.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
This is the first time you see the character Georgette. And it's really weird because in the time that takes place in the 50s, normally any homosexual or drag queen would have been hung up by their neck from a lamppost. But for some reason, Georgette knew these other guys, these gang guys, since he was a kid, so it was sort of like this weird acceptance.
So he knew how to get away with his role.
Exactly.
And that was written by?
That was written by Hubert Selby, Jr.
Yeah, great. Let's see the Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Well, that's...
Oh, you need a light there, Georgie?
What do you say you and me go for a walk, huh, Vinny?
Yeah, there's plenty of time for that, sweetheart. Maybe later.
Let me do you, Vinny. Please let me do you.
God salute to do me, sweet chicks.
Listen, be romantic.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Georgie boy. How about if I only charge you a fin?
I won't charge you nothing, Georgie.
Nah. Don't touch me, Sal, you big freak. I'm not about to have sex with you.
Oh, come on, Georgie. Let me make a real woman out of you, huh?
Oh, ouch is right.
Yeah.
That's a very gutsy role to take.
Well, yeah, I was actually warned by a lot of people the dangers of typecasting.
I wondered about that. How do you get in and out of that? Did you think about it at the time?
I did, but the truth of the matter is there's not a lot of danger of being typecast as a drag queen because there's not enough drag queen roles. There are, though, a lot of drug addict roles, and after that film, most of the offers and most of the auditions I got and meetings were for drug addicts. So it's true that people see you one way the first time, they're only going to see you that way.
They always think about that.
Yeah, but I've been.
But you don't look like that.
Well, I can look like that.
Your great boots and your great shirt and your green eyes. I mean, it works.
Well, that was a while ago too.
But what about auditioning? Do you go to a lot of auditions?
Sure. I probably auditioned just as much as anyone else. You know, I'm not like the type of actor who only goes on meetings or only. I have a couple friends that won't read. You know.
But you do everything?
Oh, by all means.
And what happens? Do you go for things that you think you might not even get? Do you learn each time?
Sure, actually, that's sort of the funnest auditions are the ones that you think you can't do, you know.
So you're loose?
Yeah, one of those ones I thought I for sure was going to blow. I thought there's no way. It was for a cowboy in a remake of Mice and Men with John Malkovich.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm never going to get this, you know. This is like the butchest role in town, you know, and all they'd ever seen was Last Egg. I thought, you know, they're never gonna go for it. But in the end, they did, and I got the job.
You did?
Yeah. So.
See, so you can just go for anything.
It's true.
Do you run into the same actors auditioning? I like to ask that question because I think it's interesting. You're all about the same age.
Yeah. It's the weirdest part is when you run into like family members.
Ah, really?
Yeah, sure. Me and my little brother have been up for a lot of the same roles. He was up for a role that I ended up getting. He probably would have got anyway, but he was too young for it. So luckily there was a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
What other actors go to the same auditions with you? Any up-and-coming names that we might know?
Well, someone you just had on your show recently.
Ricky Dean.
Ricky Dean.
Yes, you two remind me, Ricky Dean Logan, so much like you would go for the same type of roles. Do you think that as time goes on, there'll be a divergence in the character parts?
Well, I hope so. I hope so because, quite honestly, I've done mostly European films and films that aren't really seen purposely because I don't want to be in that teenage genre. I'd never want to be that. I mean, there's probably no danger of it, but I'd never want to be there. I've been sort of waiting and biding my time with my career so that hopefully I'll get to a point where I can play older roles. You know?
You do want to do that.
Yeah.
Then you'll just play older roles forever. What's in store for you before we leave?
In store for me?
Before we leave the set.
Well, let's see.
What projects are you working on?
Well, I have one coming up, Jumping at the Boneyard, will be coming out with Tim Roth. It's a Fox film, and it's a pretty gutsy film. It's about drugs. But it's really more about family and parental abuse and things that rip every American family apart. So.
And one other project?
And another one coming out, not too proud of, called Terminal Bliss with Luke Perry.
Oh, I saw that. Yes, I saw that. But there, I mean, everyone's got to go see it because all these screaming girls all over will go to see it. Now they can scream for you.
Well, they'll go and they'll scream, and hopefully they'll scream loud enough so they won't hear any of the bad dialogue.
Okay.
Or the bad editing.
Well, we've got to leave.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Yeah.
And we'll be back after the break with Billy Al Bengston, painter extraordinaire. Hi, welcome back to Joan Quinn, etc. Artist Billy Al Bengston is with us, and he wants us to make sure that you know when I say he came from Dodge City, Kansas, that he came with his parents. He didn't come alone in 1948. He went to Horace Mann Junior High School, Manual Arts High School, Los Angeles City College, California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, and ended up at Otis Art Institute. Soon after he finished Otis, he was in a group show at the Ferris Gallery, one of LA's first contemporary art galleries. It was quite the gallery to be with. And the next year, in 1958, he had a solo show, which was quite extraordinary at the time. All his friends will tell you that Billy Al is a master of color, that he has a flair for the outrageous, and that he is a perfectionist. Billy is a giver, a person who shares his skills, and a person who is happiest when he's in charge, when he's running the show. And I'm going to let you run the show, Billy. I'm going to give you a quick look at your art through the ages.
You're going to do this?
I'm actually going to do that.
How are you going to do this?
I'm going to show the catalog from one of your shows, and I'm going to talk about it. One thing, I'm going to take charge for a little while, and then Billy will take charge. One thing he uses are these unusual motifs. And Billy, say hello now and we'll start.
Hello, they're emblems.
Oh, they're emblems, unusual emblems. People talk about them, you call them emblems, and they're kind of a signature of your work. I think they seem to be a signature of your work. In the 60s, you used a lot of sergeant stripes. I'm going to show just one thing that shows the 60s. They're called sergeant stripes, but you called them...
What did I call them?
Bars and rockers?
No, I don't know.
Did you?
I tried to define it as something more than sergeant stripes, but they're sort of sergeant stripes. They're redesigned.
How did you ever pick that motif out?
Oh, it was a serious mistake. I just don't know why I did it.
We can't answer that. In the 70s, he took a trip and went to use irises.
That was also in the 60s.
And what did you call, oh, this 60s and 70s?
Well, I went back to them in the 70s and late 60s because I stopped painting on terrible industrial surfaces and went back to canvas, and the stripes didn't work too well on canvas. Matter of fact, they stunk.
Let's show another. This is quite
yes,
camouflaged, isn't it?
Well, that's a Hawaiian motif, of course.
But
I like it with the stripe across it. It looks good on the monitor.
What did you call?
Those are Draculas.
You call them Draculas, but everyone called them irises. How did you name them?
I didn't. Kenny Price, my very best friend, when he first saw them, said it looked like Count Dracula flying through the window. And that sounds a lot better than an iris, doesn't it?
Well, I never knew that. It took me all this time to find that out.
Read the catalog.
Oh, I didn't read it. In the 90s, in the 80s then, we went to airplanes, Hawaiian themes, dogs.
Oh, your favorite.
My favorite.
No.
And we know how that started. I think I can pretty much understand that, but tell our viewers.
Everything actually osmosed. When you run out of ideas, you start looking around your studio and try and find things that don't bore you, or things that you know really well. And I honestly can't say I knew this very well, but I invented that. But most things happen when you get bored and you tell the truth.
But you were flying to Hawaii a lot. I figured that was very influential.
It was extremely influential, but I wasn't flying in 747s because they didn't have them.
Is that right?
Now, the only one that had 747s was Pan Am. And when Pan Am went out of business, I practically lost it.
You know, it was very funny because when we were in Hawaii a few months ago, we were looking out the window over Waikiki and we saw this 747 fly by and we went, there's a Billy Al Bengston painting right in front of us.
That's right, they replaced birds.
You just did that. Then...
If we could only get them to flap their wings.
Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, here's another Hawaiian motif.
That's Hawaiian as well. I don't know what's on the monitor. It's sort of, yeah, it's a guy looking at a pothead.
A pothead? What's a pothead?
Doesn't it look a little like pothead?
Kind of. And then in the 90s...
What did I do?
We did moonscapes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, let's get to the moonscape. Oh, these are great.
This is closer, yeah, to what I'm doing now.
What is this?
Sort of. It's, actually, it's really about painting. And I think that all my paintings are strictly paintings. The story is irrelevant because 100 years from now, who's going to know what the story is? They're going to look at it and either like it as a painting or just reject it. And I would rather give myself and an audience the benefit of the doubt and hope that they'll look at it as a painting. And that's also the reason they're durable. And
they seem, your work is seen right now in the 90s seems to be much more painterly, heavier, the canvases, well, this group is actually, I shouldn't say that because I thought the newest group of paintings you did was kind of got rid of the paint.
It comes, it goes.
It comes, it goes.
They get thin, they get thick.
When we got to the 90s and the moonscapes, we also got to
Mother and Child.
Christy Bengston.
Yes.
And baby Blue Tika. Beautiful baby.
That's true.
And you live in Venice with your gorgeous wife and your beautiful baby.
I do.
And you have one up. You have one to show.
Oh,
me
yeah,
up.
that's what the new paintings look like.
But now you're showing me up with my good painting. You have a picture. You have another picture to show.
I have thousands of pictures.
Oh, let's see this one. This one's great. Oh.
Look at that one. There's the baby.
So here's Billy, this old man with a new baby. This is the new trend, huh, Billy?
It's always best to start life after 55.
Do you think that's right? I think you're actually all the other old men who have started life after 55 with new babies had earlier families.
I don't have an earlier family. No, it's a great idea if you get yourself a good person to share your life with and good friends to pull you through it.
Well, we're always there to help
I
you
know.
pull through. At what point did you decide you wanted to be an artist and not an athlete, a professional athlete?
Well, when I wasn't good enough as an athlete, but basically, I didn't really decide I wanted to be an artist. I was just sort of forced in it because I couldn't do anything else. Good enough. And if you can't do something better than anybody else, there's no sense doing it. And I had a look at being an artist of the caliber that I expected to be. And that's the reason I became an artist.
But you did go to art school. Were you I know you were very athletic in high school, but what about by the time you got to these art schools?
Didn't have a very good athletic program, did they?
No, that was something I know you've been interested in all your life.
Athletics are a part of my life, or being physically fit is part of my life is very important. But no, I'm an artist and a fit person second. A fit artist.
Is that what a fit artist? I showed pictures from the catalog Billy 2, which was 3 decades of art, and which it's a lot of time. I know it's a long time, but it was in several major museums throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1968, at the Los Angeles County Museum, you had a museum show, a survey.
That was only 1.5 decades.
I know, but the point is, in an artist's lifetime, if he gets one major museum show, it's quite something. And here you are with 2 already under your belt.
Yeah, and I'm going to have one in San Luis Obispo.
No, but you attribute it to, I know it's because it's good work. That's one thing. That goes without saying. But then how do you get to that point? Through a dealer?
No.
Through a gallery?
In the early days, I would say that it may have just been the fact that I was there with the thing that people wanted to look at, or confused them. And then the later one, maybe I just kept working long enough that they had to look at it again.
But you had such a big body of work?
I'm prepared, yeah.
You are a prolific painter. I mean,
I'm a happy painter.
Is that why? Is that to...
I love my job, and everybody should be so lucky. I think I like it as much as you like yours.
I love to do this. The point is, with young emerging artists, do you think that an artist needs a gallery, an art consultant, someone working for a private dealer?
Only thing an artist needs is good work. It's the only thing that seems to be lacking is good work.
But how do you get your good work out?
Who cares?
Just paint and paint, or
If you've
work
got
and
good
work?
work, they'll come to you. The real trick, if you want to call it a trick, if an artist has the work, they will come to you, because there are a few sophisticated people and quite a few artists around that have a network. And everybody is jealous. So once they see something that they like, they can't help but talk about it.
So the network
it's
is
funny.
what? Friends, other artists?
It's usually other artists. Basically, it's other artists, because you can't live in a vacuum and really survive. And the other artists they'll get it.
But I think that's one thing that you, more than anyone that I really know, has been behind the art movement, so to speak. You've been friendly. When I said you were a giver, you've been friendly with emerging artists, young artists. I mean, I remember meeting Chuck Arnaldi and Laddie Dill at your studio. They were in awe of you and the friends you were with. Ken Price, whom you mentioned, Bob Graham, Ed Moses. It was kind of a thing where you would bring these young artists in to be with, well, you weren't masters at that time, but you were painting a lot, all of you, or working a lot.
You know, if you just hang out with the same people all the time, you're going to get the same answers. It's nice to have the kids come up and have new answers or new questions. I don't find them quite as often anymore. I'm sad to say.
It's different, isn't it? The thing is, you don't find young artists as much anymore. I kind of feel the same way. I'm always looking. But do you think that has something to do with the collapse of the art market?
No, the art market has not collapsed. Just the financial cap on it has collapsed.
Good response.
If I feel that if you have the right piece at the right price, this if you're talking about market, it's only supply and demand. If you don't have the right piece at the right price, it's going to stay in your studio. I know I've made that mistake more than once. So.
But who helps you make that mistake? I mean, do you blame it on an art dealer overpricing everything, or a consultant? Where does that change come?
It's an ego trip on everybody's part, and we as artists are a little more susceptible because there are people pushing us to move our prices to escalate their commissions, and then they in turn escalate it and escalate it and escalate it, and that's why the market falls, why it blows apart. But if a person just stays in their studio and plugs away and doesn't get carried away, they should be able to survive if they've got the work. If they haven't got the work, then they're lucky to be painters anyway or artists anyway, and they'll have a good life anyway. So it doesn't make any difference. The thing is not to get tricked by the society that supposedly supports you. They don't.
Very quickly, because we have to finish, I don't know where the time went, but do you think there's a way to come out of this?
For the artist, yes. For the art dealers, no. I think you're going to see a lot of failures. And a lot of the support system to art dealers who don't work with the same gusto that the artists do, they're going to go too. That's not a bad thing. It's bloated.
It'll clean out everything, and we're going to clean out the studio.
Get out of here.
We're going to get out. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I had so many questions to ask you, and I wanted to ask you so many things, but next time. And I want to thank all of our viewers for being with us on Joan Quinn, etc., and come back and visit us next time.